Welcome into episode 532 of the Skate Podcast. I am Brian DeFelice, joined by Bridget Prue and Scott McLaughlin. The Boston Bruins suffered back-to-back shootout losses in the state of Florida. I'm going to say it right off the top here. I never, ever want to see those uniforms again. Let's retire them, bury them in the Florida Everglades, and let's move on. Can we please?
10 seconds in. That's all it took. I was wondering how long, but
I'll leave it there.
Wednesday night, one of the ugliest and honestly kind of funniest jersey matchups I've seen in a long time. Where, you have the Bruins bright yellow Stadium Series jerseys and the Panthers red Winter Classic jerseys with the old school beige pants. And it's like, one, I just don't like either uniform on their own merits. But two, it's two uniforms going for completely different vibes and opposite vibes of what you would think of those teams, where it's like the Bruins are the traditional 100-plus-year-old franchise, but they're going for this weird, bright Florida feel. And right. the Panthers start in the 90s and they're going for this traditional 100-year-old feel. and then they're just clashing and it looks like crap and you need sunglasses.
And all of our eyes are bleeding. It was just...
Yeah, I don't know about sunglasses and maybe a blindfold, but
there you go, Bridget. There you go.
Something about the pants color of Florida, which I would just describe as like puke. And then the yellow of the Bruins jerseys, it's just those two colors in particular had nothing going on together. Like they were as far from what you should put next to each other. And yes, it was. I don't normally care as much about the jerseys and that stuff as you two, but I was appalled. So.
I mean, they looked like a handful of Skittles out there. I mean, it was a couple Starbursts flying around out there.
And the pants were the melted Skittles that lost their color.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they all blended together, like started to form a weird brown.
Yeah. And then the NHL official Twitter account tweets out, "Oh, we have an all-time uniform matchup in Florida." Are you kidding me? Who do you think you're talking to?
No, Brian.
Do you think hockey fans are dumb? You think we were born yesterday? You trying to piss on my leg and tell me it's raining? Come on.
It is all time. It's all time worst. Okay, come on.
Exactly. So I know there was a hockey game to talk about. We'll get there. I just had to get that off my chest.
It's like,
right
bro,
away.
we got the Bruins whites versus the Canadians reds a couple weeks ago. Like, don't talk to me about all time jersey matchups. Unbelievable.
It would have to be this versus, I don't know, we make one with Brian's face on it or something. And
me with the bloody nose after walking into a pole. Look like the young blood jerseys, but
your profile picture on my phone.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so Scott, did you want to go first or was it Bridget?
Yeah, sure. I'll go first. So Brian referenced it, but Bruins end up with 2 shootout losses on this Florida trip. So I think going into this trip, if you had said they'll get 2 out of a possible 4 points without their top 2 centers on the trip, no Elias Lindholm, no Pavel Zacha, you would take that. And ultimately, I think you probably do take that. But the way the game's played out, you don't feel as good about it. And especially because you had that 4-goal lead Sunday in Tampa, and you let it slip away, and you lose that one in a shootout. Wednesday night, you flip the script a little bit, and the Bruins are the team that comes back in the third period and at least gets a point out of it. We were talking a little bit before, like, if you're the Panthers, you don't feel good about that. You feel like that's a game you needed 2 regulation points against a team that you're trying to chase down for a playoff spot. So, good on the Bruins at least coming back and getting the point. Plenty of things I think we can break down in terms of what went wrong. Special teams were really bad Wednesday night. Power play couldn't break through until they finally did in the third period for a big goal. But they also gave up a shorty. Florida scored 2 power play goals on only 3 attempts. So penalty kill continues to struggle. But yeah, how are you guys feeling coming? Just like quick, obviously we'll get into it more, but just quick take on getting 2 points in Florida.
I know you guys feel slightly differently. I'm down on it. Like, I think it was a bad result. I think you had the lead in the outdoor game, and it wasn't just a small lead, it was a 4-goal lead. And it should have been a win. And then they trailed in Florida, right? So, but that was the bigger of the two games, in my opinion, because of just the situation in the standings for both of those teams. I thought that they could have legitimately come away with 4 points, and that would have set them up to be in the playoffs. I know I said that last episode, that I would feel pretty comfortable saying they're going to make the playoffs if they had won that game, and certainly if they had won both games. So I think you did let Florida catch a little ground, and we can talk about later. They're not the only team that's been catching ground. So I feel less comfortable about them making the playoffs today than I did before you guys all went down there for the trip.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you hone in on each specific game, then your feelings about it can alter. Like, for example, to Bridget's point, you have a 5-1 lead against Tampa and you lose that game, you don't get 2 points. It's unacceptable, right? But then you can look at the Panthers game and say, well, you're down 2 1/3. You find a way to claw back, no pun intended, and steal a point from Florida, who needs both in regulation. So, at the end of the day, you play Florida, Tampa.
The Panther that they use on the Jumbotron that just goes wow. It's so loud when you are there in person.
It's a sassy Panther.
It catches me off guard every time. Like I know it's coming, and I'm still like oh my god.
Is it worse than the Blue Jackets cannon? Do you think?
Probably not.
I haven't been to a game in Columbus, so I've never experienced that in person.
I'll just say this to answer your question, Scott. You play Florida and Tampa, you get 2 out of 4 points. The way I look at it, did you optimize the trip? No. It could have been worse. Yes. I'd say for the most part, no harm, no foul. You get 2 points. You can look at it and say, you can sit there and pretend you beat Tampa in the Stadium Series and then lost to Florida in regulation. It's the same net effect. Obviously, not in the row column in the standings, but you know what I mean? So it depends how you look at it. I think ultimately you probably should have gotten at least 3 out of 4 points. So I do think I don't know. It's tough to damn them entirely because you did steal a point from Florida. But I do think it's fair to say that they should have at least gotten 3 out of 4 points.
You're in a worse place now than you were before the trip, and that's why I say, that's why I think it's a negative trip.
But it could be worse, right?
Of course it could be worse, but now look where they are in the standings. When they went down there, they were 8 points ahead, or they were 8 or 10 points ahead of Florida, and now they're much closer.
They still are though. The Panthers lost to Buffalo.
To me, it's not even like Bridget, the point you're making about separation opportunity to what Scott just said, it's kind of net zero in terms of Florida, but it's more so like Columbus.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I guess I shouldn't say separation from Florida anymore because they're now several back, but Columbus and Toronto are only 5 points back. So.
Well, I think Columbus is 4 and they have a game in hand. Is it? I think so.
Yeah, they're 4 now.
Okay.
So Toronto's 6 back.
So, okay, this was, I didn't hit refresh this morning because this was clearly I was looking at this last night. Bruins have 69 points, Columbus 65, Toronto 63.
No, Bridget, you're always right. NHL.com is wrong. Always stick to your guns, even when we're wrong in life. Always stick to your guns.
I just blame Scott. That's what.
Yeah. So anyway, I think we all kind of can expound upon that a little bit later on as well. But it was definitely a Metza trip. There was some good, there was some bad, and here we go into the Olympic break. But Bridget, there was a pretty key event that happened in the game as well.
Yeah, I think this trip was also marked by the officiating, which it stinks. We spent a good chunk of last podcast talking about where things went wrong, how it's a combination of being undisciplined, but also just not having things go your way in terms of the way that games are called. And it can be both at the same time. And unfortunately, I think both games you could say the same thing about. In the outdoor game, it was more what wasn't called and then some ticky-tacky things that probably shouldn't have been, and the way lopsidedness of the penalties. In this game, I think this was even worse because I think that this highlights the main issue with the NHL officiating to me, which is not protecting players correctly by making sure to get the calls right. Because obviously in enforcing it, can there be a suspension after? Will they do that? We don't know yet. We don't know if there's going to be a hearing from this. But McAvoy gets elbowed in the head, clear first point of contact, even left his feet, right? And in real time, the officials, I didn't even think they were going to call it a penalty. Then they decided to call it 2 instead of 5, which, by the way, is the absolute wrong thing to do, not just because, like, if you see it, you know, but even if you're at all unsure that it is enough to be a 5, or like you don't know which it is, which I know for a fact that the way that they want you to call it in that situation is give it the 5 and you can knock it back to a 2. Always call the 5 first. You can knock it back to a 2. You can't change it into no penalty. But in this situation, I don't know how you could see no penalty there. So it would have only made sense. And I know Scott Sturm talked about it after the game, because I saw your post with his quote. I'm going to try to find it right now, because it was, he said, if you target his head, which was clear, that just pisses me off about how they handled it, without calling the 5. Like, pretty much, I mean, any official would tell you that that's what you're supposed to do. So they just straight up didn't follow what they were supposed to do, protocol wise, not even just getting it wrong, right? So, and then the broadcast also, I mean, they kind of tried to correct themselves after, but they were just like, oh, I don't see enough here. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like,
it was embarrassing all around.
As a broadcaster, I cannot understand how you could have looked at those angles. There was like 5 angles, and there was one in particular that it was like very obviously leading with the elbow and right in the jaw, like the broken jaw that McAvoy has been dealing with. And so I'm just thinking he's re-injured that, because it's still, it's still fragile. It's still, he's wearing a bubble. And I don't know how you look at that and go, I just don't think there's enough there. What are we talking about?
Brian Boucher is still better because he had so many sore necks and stiff necks from looking behind him in the 2011 playoffs that he's still, got an axe to grind against the Bruins, I think. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that, I'm obviously, tongue in cheek right now. He really has seemed to me over the years like he's made an effort to be kind of, contrarian against the Bruins. I don't know. Is he from here? And sometimes
he's from here.
Sometimes you get that though. Like, I know people used to say it about.
Can I tell you something?
Chris Rooney, though.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, Scott. Yeah, exactly.
Well, no, his whole family is Montreal Canadiens fans. I don't know if you knew that. My dad played hockey with them, and they were all Montreal.
No, I didn't. I didn't. But yeah, he's always leaned. Whoever the Bruins are playing, and listen, I could care less. I don't usually comment on broadcasts. I don't really. It doesn't bother me. I'm watching the game for the game. But I have noticed over the years that Bouch has always kind of been, but when it comes to the Bruins. But if it's the other way around, it's always kind of like, that's just my opinion. Maybe I'm off base, but
he did then, like, after several minutes and like a media timeout, say like, I think actually they should probably look at this. The league should look at this. And
it was probably a text. It was probably a text from his producers looking at everybody talking online. That's probably what it was.
Yeah, and so by the way, the hit was by Sandusville Manis. I don't know if we mentioned that. So Bruins like jump him afterwards, and I guess must have got hurt like in that scrum, or maybe he just hurt his elbow hitting it so hard against McAvoy's head. But he didn't return to the game. He went down the tunnel and didn't play another shift. So either he legitimately got hurt, or maybe the Panthers are just hiding him and didn't want Tanner Janot or Nikita Zadorov to kill him. But like I think what the Bruins are most pissed off about, and Bridget, you mentioned it, is like the refs didn't even give themselves a chance to look at it. right? Like the Bruins they have the screens right there on the bench. They knew in 10 seconds that it was an elbow directly to the head, which is why they're losing their minds. The refs also would have seen that if they called it 5 and went into the box and looked at it, but they didn't even give themselves that chance. So yeah, that is obviously the Bruins are frustrated about multiple things. They're frustrated about someone targeting the head of one of their star players who's already dealt with injuries this year and last year. And then they're pissed at how the refs handled it, obviously. And after all that, the Panthers end up with a power play, which is just absolutely absurd because they got, so a rough going after Vilmanis and then the unsportsmanlike conduct for combination arguing the call, and they also just didn't send guys out like for the face-off, like that they delayed the game. So so the Panthers end up on the power play, which is just like extremely poorly handled by that officiating crew.
Karma though.
Puck don't lie.
Puck don't lie. Ace-Mon comes out of the box, goes on a breakaway, scores. Like he was serving the bench minor and just pops out of the box and then immediately scores. Like to me, that was one of the instant karma moments of hockey. But I will say, Scott, what bothers me even more too is coming from broadcasting so many college hockey games and watching so much college hockey and being involved in like kind of understanding the decision-making process in the officiating in Hockey East, where you can, and this is a different rule than in the NHL. In college hockey, you can challenge for a major. Like you can challenge a non-call penalty.
Which I will say, like, does create its own problems because coaches abuse that and challenge hits that aren't even close to being majors.
Yes, and we've had that, but I think it's more important to get it right. And when those are missed, to be able to look at it. And there have been plenty of times in games I've been doing recently where the coaches challenge it and they lose their timeout. They don't get it right. But I think it's more important to be able to protect players in that situation. And that way that the players know it's going to get found eventually and it will could potentially hurt your team if they go back and review it. And there's been so many cases where it is found to be 5 or 10, and the guy's getting ejected. So I just think that college hockey is better at protecting players. And that's my main problem with what we see from the NHL.
And fortunately, McAvoy did return. He was back for the start of the second period. But so, obviously would have been just devastating if it was a concussion or something, or did re-injure his jaw and forces him out of the Olympics, in the last game. So fortunately he was able to return and will, I think just about all the Bruins who are going to Italy are flying out on Thursday. Because they don't play Thursday night, they are planning to walk in the opening ceremony with their respective countries. David Pastrnak will be a flag bearer for the Czech Republic, which is obviously an incredibly cool honor. He said, I asked him about it after the game last night, and he said he was speechless and just really, really honored.
Yeah. No, that was the first thought that I had too regarding McAvoy was the potential of a concussion, a week before he's supposed to step on the ice for Team USA. And when you consider the calendar year that he's had dating back to Four Nations with the shoulder infection and missing the rest of the season there and, coming back this year, having the broken jaw, it's the kid just, he needs a little bit of injury luck. And fortunately he's, to your point, Scott, he's going to, he'll be good for the Olympics. So, speaking
by the way, the women's games are one. There's a women's game on right now.
And where what?
And one got postponed because of that crazy illness running through Finland.
Oh, I didn't see that. I know that there's
Finland has 11 players sick. Their game against Canada got postponed.
They didn't. That doesn't count as a forfeit.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Well, they get some bad, fish or something. Is that a little bit of a food poisoning situation? That's kind of Where can the games be seen, Bridget? Is it on NBC?
I have just the Peacock app. Like I just watch
I think USA Network's the home channel for all the hockey games, and then Peacock.
But so it's not just they're not just showing like US, like they're showing like who's
well,
playing.
that's why I watch it on Peacock, because normally the like actual TV is showing other events that are just US, and I want to watch like other teams.
Got
like
it.
I think they'll air the US women's and men's hockey on TV when they happen. The women play at 10:40. So as soon as we get off of this, I'm putting that on. But the US women against Czech. But I just go on Peacock and you choose whatever. You can pick any country, any sport. It's all on there. I feel like I'm doing an advertisement right now, but I'm not. I just genuinely think it's a good thing to be, because I was the Summer Olympics. I got this for the Summer Olympics, forgot to cancel. So we've had it right along. And I was watching like surfing and all sorts of random stuff on there, fencing. Like I'm the kind of person who, once Olympics started, that's the only thing that's on my TV, really. So just put something random on and watch it.
All right. So speaking of the Olympics, right now, just want to pull it up quickly. Okay. So the Bruins are 32-20-5 at the Olympic break. I want to ask you guys and the listeners a very simple question, and that is, heading into the Olympic break, have your standards and qualifications for what deems a successful season for the Bruins this year changed? Before the year started, all of us here were kind of the mindset, do the Bruins need to make the playoffs for the season to be successful based on last year? And we all sat here and said, no, not necessarily. They can miss the playoffs. They can still be a successful season if, there's, signs of internal growth, players step up. You see that they're trending in the right direction. You don't have to necessarily make the playoffs for it to be a successful season. Well, now that they're in a playoff spot at the Olympic break with 25 games remaining, has your mindset changed a little bit? Do you expect them to make the playoffs now? And if they don't, then could the season still be successful despite a lack of playoff appearance? Or is it one of those things where, you know what, you got a playoff spot now by at least a couple of points in the wild card race. You have 25 games left. If you don't make the playoffs now, then it's because it was a disappointing finish to the season and it's no longer a successful year in your mind. I'm trying to gauge where you guys are at and where listeners are at. And, personally, it's not black and white. Like I do think it depends how things shake out. But I just wanted to get a pulse on where you guys are as we hit the Olympic break.
Yeah, I mean, my expectations have definitely changed. I think they should be a playoff team. You hold a playoff spot with 25 games left. And like you said, you're 4 points clear. So to me, yeah, I don't see any reason to sit here and say this team should not make the playoffs or that should not be the expectation. They've been one of the highest scoring offenses in the NHL. They have a really good power play. Both of their goalies have turned it around since a rough December. Jeremy Swayman, for the most part, has been good to really good the vast majority of this season. I think their biggest that they've improved 5-on-5, right? Like their analytics early in the season weren't very good. They were kind of breaking even on goals. Now their analytics have improved. They're still not excellent. If you're looking at things like expected goals, but they've and just in terms of pure goal differential, they've been a really good 5-on-5 team for the last month. I think their biggest issues, while they have not been able to fix them yet, I still think are things that can be improved. They can still become a more disciplined team. Like, I don't think that's something that you just have to accept throughout the whole year that, well, they just take a lot of penalties, they're undisciplined, and it's never going to change. I think you can get better at that, and I still think they could. Their penalty kill we saw perform well early in the season. That has now turned into a pretty significant weakness for really like the last 2 months. But I think that's something that the coaching staff in particular really needs to hone in on during this break and be like, what are we doing on the penalty kill? Are we using the right guys? Like, what do we need to do to kind of reset here and get this on track? If I were them, that'd be my number one priority over these 3 weeks before they play another game. So I think there's enough. Do I think they're going to be like a Stanley Cup contender? No, I still don't think that. But I think you can fairly say like this is a team that should make the playoffs, and I just don't really see any reason to be like, oh yeah, they probably will and should like lose a spot between now and the finish line.
I think, Brian, what you mean is kind of like the bar has moved mid-season, right? Like after January, the bar is different than it was even at the end of or like midway through December after the losing streak. That's what you mean, right? Like back then, if you had told people, oh, they're like right outside a playoff spot, would you just take this season to look back and go, well, Minton got better and goaltending got better and Marco Sturm had a good first year. There was positive change. They didn't make the playoffs, but you saw like those little incremental things that you wanted to see. But that no longer feels like it would be considered successful because once you do have playoff positioning and hold it, it's been a while, right? Since they've been below the wild card spot, ever since, what was it? Maybe a few games into January, they've been up ahead in the playoff picture. So then the conversation becomes, did Sturm do enough? Like what happened for it to fall apart at the end? Should they have really been buyers or, even if it's just one or two small moves, like rather than sellers? Because then you look at the roster if you're sellers and you're like, well, now you might have even taken another step back, right? Like maybe a minor step back because you decided, yeah, we're gonna get rid of Zaka. Whereas if you were in a playoff position, you wouldn't have done that, right? So like you're now putting yourself in the position where you need to go find another guy next year, which becomes another hill you have to climb. So yeah, I think at this point it would be considered not like a successful bridge season. It would be considered a failed chance to give fans the ability to go right back to watching playoff hockey.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you were to tell us before the year started, the Bruins are going to miss out on the playoffs because they lost game 82, I think we probably would have been like, oh wow, I mean, pretty good season, all things considered. And we would have said, that's probably a successful season because it means certain people must have, improved and progressed and whatnot. But I'm getting the sense now that if somebody were to tell us that in, 2 months' time or whatever it is, that the Bruins missed the playoffs on game 82, knowing what we currently know about the standings, I feel like we would not be saying, oh, wow, good see. Like, no, and so, I also acknowledge that it's not a very black and white answer. Like, there's a lot of gray here because the Bruins could miss out in the playoffs in game 82, but Fraser Minton and Hus Nadinov or Jonathan Aspero or whoever, they continue to show you that, hey, you got something here, right? And it's like, okay, well, I mean, that's a positive. Like you can take that forward for the future. That's a successful year in terms of developing players that are, part of your future.
And maybe you get another top 10 draft pick. Like if they had really bottomed out again, like you could convince yourself, well, another top 10 guy that we just added. And, but if you finish right outside, you're not quite, unless Toronto falls, which is kind of out of your hands, except for when you can beat them head to head. But yeah.
And I think, Is what I'm about to say 100% foolproof? No, I'm sure there could be some examples contradicting my next statement, but I don't really think that Stanley Cup champions enter the playoffs for the first time, in a little bit and then win the cup. Like, I feel like you kind of have to go through, a couple of playoff runs consecutively leading up to a prospective championship. So what I mean by that is, like, I think Fraser Minton and Marat Husadinov and James Higgins, like, I feel like those guys, Mason Lohrei, yes, McAvoy and Pasternak and guys like that have playoff experience, Swayman, Lindholm, Zadorov, all that stuff, Zaka, Geeky, but you want the younger players to get postseason experience as well before you're, like, truly a contender. And so, you want that to be this year for Boston. You don't want that to be pushed down the line another season. So I think that, I do think making the playoffs this year, especially with them in a playoff spot, I think it's important for the team's growth. We saw it nearly 20 years ago now. You saw what happened. The Bruins missed the playoffs a couple times after the NHL lockout. They come back in 07, 08. They make the playoffs as a true underdog in round one. They push Montreal to the brink. You lose, but you gain momentum. The next year, you're second in the East, or first in the East. I think you were second in the NHL. You were first in the East. You win a round, you sweep Montreal, you get your heart broken against Carolina. The next year, you have a good first round against Buffalo, you get your heart broken against Philly, and then you win the Stanley Cup, right? It's like, I just, I want that maturation process for these younger players in the postseason to happen this year because they're currently in a playoff spot. So in that sense, if they do miss out in the playoffs, I think it's a missed opportunity for postseason growth for your younger players.
Yeah, and even more recently than that, like 14-15, 15-16, Bruins missed the playoffs those 2 years. 16-17, they get in. Everyone knew they weren't a cup contender, but they go up against Ottawa in the first round. They get experience, get their feet wet. You have, McAvoy, DeBrusque, like some younger guy, Pasternak, playing playoff hockey for the first time. Brandon Carlo, unfortunately, missed that series, got injured right at the end of the regular season. So they lose in the first round. The next year, they win a round, lose to Tampa in the second round. And then 18-19, they go to the Stanley Cup final. So you're right. Like, there's real value to starting that progression and that experience it takes to grow into a team that can go on a deeper run, even if you're not expecting this year to be that deeper run. And Mark, like you said, like Marco Sturm was there for that 07, 08 team, right? Like he saw that, he understands that value. So he feels that. And like I said, like McAvoy and Pasternak, like those guys were there for 16, 17. So they understand that value. So I think Pasternak said it last night when I asked him like just how he feels about where the team is, and he was like, I feel good. If you had told any of us we'd be in a playoff spot going into the Olympic break, we'd all take it. And he said, now everyone kind of take this time to reset, whether you're going to the Olympics or just going on vacation. But when we all get back, like everyone be ready to make a push for the playoffs. Now, obviously, like there's a caveat here of if one or two of your guys going to the Olympics get hurt, like unfortunately that really changes things, and that's going to happen to some team. There's going to be some team who has a key player get hurt at the Olympics. Like unfortunately, I just think that's unavoidable in a reality of playing such a high intensity tournament in the middle of the regular season. But we're all going to love watching, and you just cross your fingers and hope it's not your team.
Yeah, like it was during Four Nations.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point too, Scott. Like if something like that were to happen, like, you don't even want to speak it into existence, but just, some of Boston's top players that are going there, right? Like, if something were to happen, okay, yeah, that dramatically impacts the final 25 games. So yeah, it's like I said, it's not a black and white answer, but it's, hey, listen, it's the fact that the Bruins are in this position and our expectations for them in terms of making the playoffs has changed is, something that we didn't even know, hell, a month and a half ago, right? You're in the middle of that 6-game losing streak. You're second of the year. You're not even at the calendar year 26 yet. It was looking murky, right? And so the fact that and Scott, you wrote about this, I believe, this morning, but the fact that the Bruins have the best record or the second best record since Gen 1 in the league.
Second best since December 31st. Only Tampa's been better. And
go.
what's even like more kind of remarkable to me about that stretch since December 31st, they've scored the most goals in the NHL in that time. Now, like, again, you have a 10-goal outlier with the Rangers game, but even beyond that, like, you look at their game log, there's a lot of 4, 5, 6-goal games in there. Like, I know it's like, I feel like we all keep waiting for the offense to just go quiet at some point because we have these preconceived notions of what we thought this lineup was going into the season. And it's like, well, you combine the 5-on-5 depth scoring they have with the power play still rolling as a top 5 unit. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe they're just a good offensive team. Like, maybe we just need to admit that. You have 2 stars in Pastrnak, one of the best all-around offensive players in the world. Geeky, one of the best goal scorers, goes into the break tied for 3rd in the NHL in goals. And then you have the depth beyond it. The Bruins have 11 20-point scorers. I looked this up last night. Only 3 teams have more players with 20 or more points than that. And I think it was Colorado, Pittsburgh, and somewhat randomly Ottawa. But like that's it.
Yeah.
I think too, and it is related to the scoring that you're talking about, and to tie in the last 2 points that we were making about injuries and scoring. Like, I think this year the team has been more resilient in the face of injury. Like, there was a stretch where both Pastrnak and McAvoy were out and they still had a winning record. And there's been people who have stepped up with scoring when there was big injuries. And just look at this trip to Florida. You're out without your top 2 centers. And you still put up 5 goals in the game in Tampa. And I don't know if you guys felt the same way. Did you really feel like they were missing their top 2 centers? Like, did you feel like that looked like a team that was missing its top 2 centers? Because I think that people have filled in behind, when people have been injured.
I'll tell you where I really noticed it. In the dots, which is obvious because they're centers, but in the face-off circle, but on the power play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the power play, because
1 for 7.
Yeah, and you notice, like, okay, Fraser Minton is now on the top power play unit, and then he got switched off of it, but he was to start.
I mean, you lost your entire entry. Like, so many of the Bruins power play entries are Zacha and Elias Lindholm coming up the ice double-barreled, and either one of them takes it or they dish over to the wing if the PK like collapses to the middle. And so like now you need 2 different guys bringing the puck up the ice all the time. So yeah, I think it's definitely throwing off the power play. And I was actually, Brian, I was sitting next to Ty Anderson in the press box last night, and like we were talking about the same thing. Like it just seemed like they were losing so many crucial faceoffs and couldn't really figure out like who they want to take in that draw to start the power play. Like it was Minton at one point, and then it was Geeky, and then they swapped Middlestat on for Minton, and he takes it. They actually ended up like near 50% on the power, like on faceoffs, which
they were above.
I was
like
like
52.
Yeah, which I was like, it felt way worse than that. And I will say, you should be well over 50% on the faceoff on power plays because you have one more guy to crash in and win the battle.
Yeah.
But I was kind of amazed they even ended up at 50%. It just felt worse.
I know. And yeah, I mean, the power play that's the crazy part about that game is the refereeing was so much of a story because of the way that they handled the McAvoy situation. And then the bullshit, call on Zadorov at the end of regulation, the end of when time expired in the first. It was just laughable. It's like there's not even anything there. And you know what that is it's a ref who didn't even see what happened and was just guessing because Tkachuk reacts and swings a stick back and the ref thinks, oh, Zadorov slashed him. It's just it's like, bro, like if you didn't see it, don't call it. Like, don't guess. Right. So the Panthers score on the ensuing power play to start the second period. Now it's 2-2 game. Game's starting to change a bit. They score on the next power play 3-2. But you look at the box score at the end of the day, and the Bruins had 7 power plays to Florida's 3. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Boston had the last 6 power plays of the game. So
make up for Sunday when Tampa had the final 7.
Which like don't tell me, and nobody here is, but it's like, don't tell me the NHL officials don't fucking know the score and try to, like, they know when they fucked up and they try to atone for it later on. Not that they fucked up in the Bruins Tampa game. That was more so the Bruins having a big lead, so they wanted to let Tampa back in where they could. But they knew they had egg on their face when they went back after the first period and probably saw the McAvoy incident. And, so listen, the Bruins get the benefit of it too here and there. But like, for anybody who ever says that, refs don't, try to make things even, it's absolutely true. So they're not exactly men of honor. They're men of gamesmanship. It's the same in every sport. Like it's a way. We all know this, right? It happens in the NFL, it happens in the NBA, it happens, maybe less so in baseball because it's a little bit, maybe it happens in baseball too. I don't really know. But yeah, the officiating just I try to stay away from it, because if you spend every game focusing on if calls were correctly made or not, or if they were missed or not, you're going to pull your hair out. You're going to drive yourself insane. So I really just try to go into each game expecting that, like, listen, they're going to be bad for both teams probably, and things happen fast. But unfortunately, the last couple of games, it's just been so in your face. It's been hard to ignore.
Yeah. I mean, and especially when it circles around an injury to one of the better players in the league, right? Like, you're going to talk about it if that's the case. And it's so funny because everybody is tweeting, like, there was a lot of tweets about it, right? And a lot of the comments on some of the videos were like, well, it's the Panthers. They get away with everything. Like, it's always the Panthers. It's Department of Panther Safety. Like, like just stuff like that, that if it were any other team, maybe they don't call it, or maybe they do call it. But when it's the Panthers, it seems to be a league-wide thing that everyone has said, like, they get away with it. And it's because you watch the last several playoffs, and it kind of does feel like that. So
did you guys see the ratings for the Stadium Series?
No.
Yes.
Really good for ESPN and the NHL. And I would just say, comeback sell. Like, and I don't know if that's goalie fights too.
Oh,
but
yeah.
like, I don't know if you get that great of ratings.
No.
If the Bruins make it 6-1, 7-1, it just turns into a blowout. But yeah, it was the most viewed, according to ESPN PR, the most viewed NHL regular season game ever on cable.
And those are the uniforms that people saw. God help us.
It averaged 2.1 million viewers, peaked at 2.4, up 30% over last year's Stadium Series between the Red Wings and Blue Jackets, which was at Ohio Stadium. And by the way, so now the Stadium Series is out.
Does that just count like US TV and not?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because there was more people watching it, but they're watching it on, like, Sportsnet or whoever was carrying it in Canada.
Yeah, so those are US ratings. The Stadium Series has now outdrawn the Winter Classic 3 years in a row.
Has there been one Stadium Series per season? I feel like there was a couple of years where they had like a couple.
Yeah, I think it's mostly been one per year, but you're right. There have definitely been years where there were like two.
So I wonder why that is, in terms of what you were talking about. Like, does that coincide with the Winter Classic going from Jan 1 to Jan 2? Do you think they had some New Year's Day viewers before?
It's a couple of things. The biggest one is Stadium Series is on ESPN. Winter Classic's on TNT. ESPN is just more of a deep, like, someone made the point of, like, think about every sports bar you've ever been to. ESPN is always on multiple TVs. TNT, you might have to request. So yeah. like that's a big, like, ESPN is just much more, people are putting it on. Like, it's just in people's habits
every bar, like you said. That's why my show's ratings are so good, is because people just leave nesting. They just leave nesting on in the bar everywhere in New England, and everybody has to watch my face on Friday night. But
yeah, I think you guys drew 2.1 million.
Yeah, we did.
Right? Yeah.
I just like the idea. I really like the idea that it's like a Friday night, every Friday night during hockey season. And if, like, any of my exes want to go to a sports bar, they just have to see my face. That's what I like about it. So
The one other point I was going to make on why Stadium Series might be better or outdrawing is I think they've really found a sweet spot with this Sunday between NFL Conference Championship games and the Super Bowl. Like you're not battling much, right? Like even the Pro Bowl isn't that day anymore. They do that like during the week. So
yeah, I was
you
bored
can
that day.
really kind of claim that night.
Yeah, I was bored and I was just sitting around waiting for that game to start for like a good chunk of the day.
All right, guys. Were there any other storylines from either game down in Florida? Obviously, we covered the Tampa game last episode, but the Panthers game. I mean, I thought that David Pasternak had a quiet game. I thought Charlie McAvoy, all things considered, with the scary incident, he's got now points in 15 of his last 17 games. So I think he continues to play some of the best hockey of his career, certainly from a production standpoint. But I feel like the reason that the power play was kind of off last night, despite finally converting on their 6th one of the evening to tie the game 4-4, you don't have Lindholm, you don't have Zacha, but I also just felt like Pasternak, was off his game a little bit, and I think that that's reflected in not being chosen in the shootout.
Yeah, that definitely. You could remember last week. I forget exactly which game it was. Oh, it might have been. I think it was the Rangers game. And Pasternak said afterwards, he was like, "I just knew I was feeling it tonight. Like it just felt like every pass was going to be perfect." Last night was the opposite of that.
Yeah,
it felt like every pass was just like off. He was trying to force things through traffic. He's holding on to pucks too long, and it's like it's so weird, like how that just happens sometimes with obviously someone who's one of the best players in the world, and the overwhelming majority of games makes plays where you're like, wow, that's like how did he even see that? And then like last night, you're sitting up there in the press box, and it's like, how did he not know that guy was closing on him? Like, how did he hold on to the puck that long? Why did he try to make that pass through 3 bodies? And it's, hey, sometimes you're just not feeling it. And I did think that was clearly an off night for Pasternak.
Well, and in the post game, didn't Sturm say he's not seen Pasternak score in a shootout, so he didn't go with him?
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of gamesmanship, though.
I think it's like a little bit of a message of like, all right, Pasta, like if you want to be one of our regular go-to shootout guys, like step it up and score. Yeah. And I think that extends to practice too. Like I would get Sturm didn't directly say that, but I would guess he maybe feels like Pasternak's not doing much in practice when they do shootouts too.
And clearly that like who's Nadinov and like Middlestad are.
He was lights out in the Centennial year. He for some reason was filthy. Like he had all these slingshot shots, and now he's just like he has the patent and like shoulder shake where he goes backhand, forehand, tries to go up high quick, like you saw against Vasilevsky in the Stadium Series. And it's a good move, especially if you can sell it properly. But you're giving yourself such a narrow margin for error. It's like, okay, if you're going for under the crossbar, like you got to hit it, right? Especially against someone like Vasilevsky, who's a big boy. But yeah, I mean the Rangers. You play the Rangers. Let's be honest. I mean, Tampa Bay and Florida, they play a lot stingier defensively than the New York Rangers. Like I think that's part of it too. Like if I'm being honest, I feel like he goes up against some teams that know how to. Obviously, Florida's been struggling. Okay, but it's more circumstantial. They know how to win in that room, and I think that he played against some big boys. Nico Mikkola is not a fun defenseman to play against. Neither is Aaron Ekblad or some of these other guys they have. So, I don't know. I just feel like when a checking gets a bit tighter, right, it gets harder to make plays. And I think sometimes in the regular season you're not necessarily prepared for that, like you are in the playoffs. So maybe it just catches you off guard here. But I just if I'm trying to figure out reasons why the Bruins were 1 for 7 in the power play last night, I don't think he was himself. Now, credit goes to the opponent probably too, but either way.
But by the way, you mentioned gamesmanship. Brad Marchand scores the shootout winner for Florida. Paul Maurice at morning skate said Marchand wasn't playing. He ruled him out for the game. Then all of a sudden Marchand takes the ice for warm-ups. It's like, that's interesting. Maybe he's just getting a skate in. But then he goes through line drills and he's in the lineup and ends up with the winner.
Yeah.
You got Bridget. You love his post game commentary, right?
Oh,
Maurice.
Maurice. Oh yeah.
You know what we didn't think he could go, and then we came back into the coach's room and we said, hey, you know what, this guy's just a competitor and he's gonna go. Good luck telling me he's not gonna go.
I can't with him. I don't listen to him. I can't. The two things from this game that I wanted to say before we move on, because I think there's some league stuff too to talk about. But Samant scored twice. Had an assist in the outdoor game. Obviously, he'd been scratched a few times. Comes in, makes some good plays. Ended up on the power play as well, just because he was kind of the hot hand. And Matt Patra sent back down to Providence immediately after the game was over. For obvious reasons, he can now continue to play during this break. So, that's obviously beneficial.
Yeah, and speaking of Patra, I talked to him Tuesday after practice in Fort Lauderdale. And asked him about what we talked about on the last episode, which was Elliot Friedman saying that, neither side has been happy with each other and speculating that like there could be a trade coming. And Patra, unsurprisingly, I would say denied that and said his exact quote to me was, I'm happy. I haven't been unhappy all season. I'm happy to be here and I'm happy to try and contribute. Just excited to have an opportunity to play in the NHL again. So yeah, I'm not unhappy in any way. And then I asked him about like, has he been frustrated or unhappy like being in Providence all season until this recent call up? And he said, obviously it's hard to be playing in Providence and the ultimate goal is to be playing in the NHL, but it's something I want to earn and not just be handed. It's not unhappiness. It's just obviously everybody wants to be in the NHL. So now he's at least on record, right? Like people can choose whether they believe that or not. But I think the part I liked is him saying like, I want to earn it and not just be handed an NHL spot.
Yeah.
Which is obviously important for any young player to understand and like actually embrace.
Yeah. He seems to always have. He came into the league with a level of maturity, like mental maturity. I think that will hopefully for him benefit him in kind of just getting it, if you know what I mean, like just understanding what you have to do to be successful.
One thing about him though, and I saw it again last night. Okay, because you're right, Bridget. Like he's a mature kid. Like I like his responses. He has what appears to be a really good attitude, like smart player, has good skill.
Constantly, like
yes. All of those things. But if you were to ask me my opinion on what's kept him out of the NHL consistently, it's been his inability to handle physicality and keep himself out of dangerous situations. And that's not me saying he doesn't battle, because he does battle, but he's been prone to injuries, from just being hit by bigger, more physical players. And last night there was a play where, again, and listen, hockey happens fast and guys are hit every shift, every game. So I'm not sitting here saying that he's supposed to turn invisible and teleport away from a hit, but there is a way to try to keep yourself away from dangerous parts of the ice with your back turned near in those situations. And last night, I forget who the Panther player was, but Matt got the puck in the Bruins end, like in the corner, and he just like his back was just, he turned at the last second or something like that, and the guy just plastered him. And I remember thinking, and it was one of those hits where the camera angle kind of switched, so the camera was kind of in the corner, and then right as the hit was happening, it kind of switched to like a side view of the ice. And I don't think they showed a replay, but I remember watching it and being like, dude, this guy just drilled him into like the board shoulder first. And it was not a light hit. And I just couldn't help but think to myself, Matt, like these are the situations that you get yourself into in the past where you end up getting hurt for a couple of weeks at a time because your shoulder pops out or something. So he has to, it's not a simple fix. Like, again, things happen quick and there's different, situations all the time on the ice, but just generally speaking, he has to find a way to protect himself better on the ice. I guess that's the simplest way I can put it.
Yeah, and be effective against a team like Florida, against a heavier team. Like, I thought he had a lot of quiet shifts last night, and it's like, yeah, like this is the ultimate test, right? Like, that's the 2-time defending champs, regardless of where they are in the standings right now. I'm not saying it's easy, but like that's kind of the next step, right? Is like, okay, you can have good games and good shifts and make things happen, but like the ultimate test is you got to do it against a team like Florida and find a way to be, just to be a little bit more effective in a game like that. But I do think it's notable that his ice time went up a little Wednesday night. He had been under 12 minutes each of his first 2 games and was up over 13 in this one. So, and I think he was out for an overtime shift, so that maybe that adds to it. But yeah, I'll be interested to see what happens here. Like, I think we would expect. I mean, Elias Lindholm and Pavel Zacha, as of now, are still playing in the Olympics. They have not been ruled out. Marcus Sturm said it was, at this point, more of a situation for their national team doctors to decide than the Bruins doctors. But neither one's been ruled out. So it seems like they're
surprising. Wait, they said that?
What do you mean?
They said that? The Bruins said that.
Said what?
That they are handing it off to the national team doctors?
Yeah, that's what Sturm said on Tuesday.
Well, after what happened to McAvoy last year, I'm surprised that was what they decided to do.
Well, I mean, what's the other option? Like,
I mean, they're still with the team until today, so or tomorrow. When's the official like?
Well, I mean that they're flying today. They're flying Thursday, but like, obviously, the national team doctors have to have a say, right? Like,
yeah. I don't know.
Like, I don't think that, like, the Bruins couldn't tell Sweden, hey, Elias Lindholm is or isn't playing, right? Like, Sweden would be like, wait a second, we want to say in this.
Yeah. I do wish we had an update, at least some sort of a day to day, like, because they haven't been practicing, right, Scott? Like, you've been down there, they haven't.
Well, that they weren't on the trip. We don't know if they were skating back in Boston at all.
Yeah, so I mean, there hasn't been a legitimate update, so it's kind of hard to tell where they are in their progress towards being healthy.
Yeah, and so where I was going with it is, it seems like they're going to be. It seems like no matter what, they're going to be back after the Olympics, right? And like unless they get re-injured or something. So presumably that means Poitras probably stays in Providence, but we'll see. Like, did he do enough to maybe earn at least some consideration, or maybe another opportunity if someone goes down or has to miss a game or two at some point after the break? So, yeah, I'm interested to see what the rest of the season looks like for Poitras. I think if you're the Bruins, even if he does spend the rest of it in Providence, I think you want to see him dominate down there and like really finish strong.
Yeah, and by the time they come back from break, it's the first game back is February 26th. College hockey season is winding down, like in that span. Like, only they have regular season games that week, and then when you get into March, it's playoffs, and it's how far does BC go in the playoffs too. So that's actually right around the corner in terms of actual NHL games being played. It's not soon because we have this big break in the middle, but like that is theoretically, like, you might get a few games into that chunk right after the break and have maybe an option to bring up Higgins or depending on how BC season goes, because you make the tournament, then he's it's going to be a while before you see him. But if they don't make the tournament, which right now they're kind of on the bubble, you could see him sooner.
Well, they got a bean pot to win first, right, Scotty?
He's not gonna agree on that one.
I'm not feeling great about BU's chances based on how the last BC BU meeting went.
I was there. Yeah, that was a tough one. Maybe they want revenge. Maybe they're seeing this is an opportunity to get back at them. But yeah.
Speaking of
Casey's last regular season game is March 7th. So and then we hit the Hockey East tournament, which takes 2 weeks, and we hit the NCAA tournament. So,
and speaking of the NCAA, Bridget, there was a story that you wanted to get to.
Yeah, I mean, there was a few things that happened yesterday. I mean, yesterday was a crazy sports news day. What a weird day. Like, Washington Post gets rid of their sports department, which had been rumored for a little bit, but they announced it. I mean, it was NBA trade deadline. There was like there was a lot going on, and then all of a sudden, this report surfaces. Oh, Panarin gets traded to LA. Didn't get it right
by Adam Schefter.
Yeah, that gets broken by Schefter. It was that was crazy. I don't think the return was great. So yeah. Anyway, Rangers did that. And then I think the most eye-catching story in the hockey world was the report that comes out about Gavin McKenna being arrested on, I guess it happened back on New Year's Eve. And at first everyone's like, oh, his draft stock's going to drop, like without knowing details. And then like people are putting out more details about, okay, he punched the guy because he said something about his family, or like some people are saying he insulted his mother. Like, we don't know the backstory to exactly the altercation, but it's Gavin McKenna. Like, it's the projected #1 pick in this year's draft. It is a story in the hockey world, and immediately like speculation goes crazy. What happened? And people have already picked sides. I don't think we really know that much about what happened to say a side yet. Because I mean, people were posting text messages, but they were from like random Penn State students that said they had a friend that was there or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's still so much time.
Well, and apparently the fight itself is on video. So like police, prosecutors, whatever, like are going to be able to see that part of it at least, which again, like, I don't know if what led up to it is on video. There's probably not audio of anything. So, I definitely think like we have to kind of see how this plays out and what the whole story is here, because there's a universe where this absolutely hurts his draft stock if it turns out that, maybe he's the aggressor or had something to drink, which, by the way, I think like there was not any drunken public charge or anything like that. So maybe that wasn't a factor. But like, yeah, it still could absolutely hurt him. Or if it is, hey, like this guy was harassing his mom or whatever, where you say, maybe you wish he didn't quite respond that way, but it becomes a lot more understandable and maybe ultimately doesn't hurt his draft stock that much. Like, it's just right now, it's probably a little too early to really know how everyone's going to feel about this in June.
If the kid said to his mother what has been speculated, if that's true, I don't think it's going to hurt his draft stock with NHL GMs. I'll leave it at that. So, and as far as the Panarin stuff, apparently he only wanted to go to the Kings, and he's a pending UFA. The Rangers had no leverage here. I still think the return was, even for a team with no leverage, it's still Artemi Panarin. Like, I still think you have to find a way to get a little bit more than what they did. But he also found, especially, he had an extension. He already signed an extension with the Kings. So it's like, damn. I mean, was it 2 years, $11 million per? So, I mean, if we're a Rangers podcast or Rangers fans out there, it's like you're looking at Chris Drury saying, "Buddy, really? We're trying to tear things down here and do a rebuild, and you start with getting a conditional third for Panarin and a B-level prospect." Oh, okay. Good start.
I gotta text my Rangers fan friends and just give a little like sanity check, see if they're doing okay. Because I mean, they've got all that fan base has lost some of the some favorites that they had over the past 5 years. And I'm sure Panarin was a favorite for a lot of people. So,
And he's not the last to go. I bet. I mean,
mhm.
I think you're gonna see. I mean, so in the last year and a half, season plus, they've lost Truba, they've lost Capo Caco, they've lost Chris Kreider, they've lost Artemi Panarin. Who else am I missing here? Is that pretty much the big ones? I think you'll probably see
Ryan Lindgren. I mean, he was getting towards the
Lindgren.
tail end, but he was a fixture there for a long time.
I have to imagine, like, teams are going to be calling up the ass for Vinny Trocheck, right? Like, I don't know. You guys still
That's
sold
such
on
an eloquent way to put it, Brian.
you guys still sold on JT Miller, or like I don't know how bad do they want to tear it down. I'm sure those guys have.
You do have to ice a team. Enough skaters.
Well, no, you do, but you know what? Hey, I mean, the Bruins iced the team last year when they got rid of Coyle, Carlo, and Marchand and others, Frederick, Brazeau. Like, they have minor league systems. If they don't care about losing the rest of the season, like, they can ice a team. I obviously the guys I just mentioned, they probably have full no moves potentially, so they'd have to be willing to move. But I don't think Panarin's the last to go this season for the Rangers.
Yeah, a couple interesting things here. So Liam Greentree being the prospect that goes from the Kings to the Rangers. We talked about him somewhat recently because he was the player taken right after the Bruins drafted Dean Letourneau. Last year at this time, everyone said, wow, that was a huge mistake. Liam Greentree was lighting up the OHL as one of the league's leading scorers. Dean Letourneau had 0 goals all season at BC. In the year since then, this season, kind of flipped a little bit. Dean Letourneau has very much been a prospect on the rise and has, climbed all these prospect rankings. Liam Greentree's production in the OHL has gone down. He's taken a step back and has dropped a little bit in some of those rankings. So, like if you're doing the Bruins comparison, and again, it didn't happen because Panarin had the no trade clause and could direct where he was going. That basically would have been like a 3rd round pick in Dean Letourneau is what that trade would have been. The other interesting thing here is there had been a report, and I don't know if people were just guessing at this or assuming, but there were reports that he wanted Florida, Tampa, or Vegas, and it's or Dallas, I think, was also in there, and it was the no tax states, of course. Here we go again with the no tax thing. And it ends up that just wasn't true at all. And he just wanted to go to LA in a very high tax state. And it's so where did that how did people miss on that? Did they just assume big name, big money? He wants one of those no tax states and didn't actually report it out, because I think there were a couple of reporters who went with that kind of have egg on their face.
And didn't Jimmy Murphy have some sort of rumor about what the Rangers wanted in return if they were when they were shopping to the open market like other teams? I'm trying to find it. Apparently he's tweeted a lot in the last day. I'm trying to find it.
Was it something about Will Smith or Ryan Leonard?
Yeah, and Leonard, calling about Leonard and Smith.
But they're different teams, so I don't know what the full context was. I think you texted it to us, so I saw that. But
yeah, and I can't even find it on here. So maybe I don't know.
Yeah, and also what Chris Drury might ask for is very different than what might end up actually being realistic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, Will Smith was a 4th overall pick. Ryan Leonard was 7th or 8th overall pick, and one of the best college hockey players last year. What he wanted was a good prospect, right? He ends up with Greentree, who's in the 20s. I don't think anyone's trading you their 4th overall pick, and I certainly wouldn't trade Ryan Leonard at all for doesn't really matter what you're asking for. Even Artemi Panarin, like I think Ryan Leonard has an incredibly bright future ahead of him. And I think he's a rare, I'm not going to call him a prospect because he's playing in the NHL, but like he's a rare talent in that there's not many people that play like with the kind of intensity. I don't know. He kind of reminds me of Kachuk a little bit. He's got some like some
piss and vinegar.
I'm trying to find the right way to say it, but like he's somebody that can be a real pain in the ass in like a good way. So yeah, I would not be trading him.
He's got some jam. And he's got a lot of skill to go with it. Guys, we're gonna wrap up here pretty soon, but I'd be remiss, okay, because contrary to the last 20 years, it's not every year we get a Super Bowl in New England. It's just almost every other. There's been some fun storylines heading into the Super Bowl here, and I just wanted to kind of get you guys' takes on some items. I mean, there's Tom Brady that is not showing any support for the New England Patriots.
Bro, like what are you doing? Come on. Like I know he's part owner of another team now, but like your team's not in it. The Raiders weren't even close to it.
Yeah.
Like root for the Patriots. What are you doing? How can you say you have no dog in the fight?
I definitely never expected.
He was teammates with Vrabel for what, 8 years?
Well, listen, the low hanging fruit here is that, despite being the greatest quarterback to ever play and somebody who will never be, touched in terms of, his greatness and the all time moments that he was a part of, he's got a freaking statue outside of Gillette. Despite all that, he's threatened by what's a young quarterback that people are falling in love with. Listen, Tom, you weren't going to play forever. It's like you can't fault Patriots Nation for supporting the here and now. It's got nothing. No one's supporting you any less, right? It does feel like a little bit of jealousy. It's a little threatened by like.
It's like you check back in on your ex and they're happy and they're having a great life.
That's what it feels like.
It's just like, oh damn, I don't like that. I'm not gonna.
That's what it feels like.
I will just say, I hope that's not where Tom Brady's going. Don't be Joe Montana or Cam Newton. Tom Brady grew up idolizing Joe Montana, and Joe Montana was a prick about Brady's career, like all the ways through. Like never acknowledged him as like challenging Montana's status. Never said like, oh yeah, he's the best ever. He's the best doing it now. Like always downplayed Brady's success. And it was like, dude, like that's someone who idolized you. Like have some support for him. Like be in his corner. And Cam Newton's done it with Drake May now, where Drake May from Carolina grew up a huge Cam Newton fan when he was on the Panthers.
That's a mistake.
And Cam Newton has just shit all over him this season and like completely dismissed everything like, Drake May's done.
Cam Newton's just an idiot. All right. Like we don't need to even consider him. Like, obviously, maybe it means something to Drake May, but Cam Newton is maybe one of the worst analysts on TV. And was a terrible football player when he was in New England. But I don't know. I don't have zero respect for Cam Newton. Like I wish Tom Brady would do better, but Cam Newton is just
when Tom went to the Buccaneers, it was weird for Patriots fans and for this region, especially when he went and won a Super Bowl with the Bucs. But I think we all kind of understood that there was a bit of a dynamic between him and Bill that just wasn't working, and we were honestly kind of like, you know what, Tom, like go do your thing, like go ahead, like there's some, you and Bill aren't seeing eye to eye, like we kind of get why you're doing what you're doing. But I never anticipated his post playing career to be as distant from New England as it's been. Like I know that he's he's a politician, and I know he's got aspirations to be a national figure in the media, but there's a way to do that while still kind of being like, even it can even be a joke, like how biased you are against New England, like you know what I mean, like you can play around with it. He's just so porcelain, and at the end of the day, it's like, this is why it reminds me of that scene from The Bronx Tale. Have you seen that movie, A Bronx Tale?
Mm-hmm.
There's a line in that movie where Sonny says to Kaloljanol, he says, C's upset because, Mickey Mantle cried. And he's like, why are you upset about Mickey Mantle crying? He says, he's not going to pay your rent. Go ask Mickey Mantle if your dad can't pay the rent. If he cares, he says, nobody cares. Like Tom Brady in New England, he was incredible at what he did, but he wasn't doing it for Bob and Joe and Woburn watching the Patriots game. He was doing it because he was a professional athlete. That's what he doesn't have any affinity towards the people who loved him and loved the team and filled that stadium for all these years. He's got an ego.
But he has been back. They had a whole night for him when they retired his number, and they sold out Gillette Stadium just for a number retirement ceremony.
Yeah.
And then they unveiled a statue just like not even a year and a half ago. And he said he's a patriot for life. And so like when he's here, he plays into it. But now, 16 months later or whatever, he can't even support them in the Super Bowl and say like, go Pats.
Well, he's sure as hell not gonna turn down a statue of himself. And so in order to do so, you got to go there in person. What's he gonna do? Not say he's like he's a politician. Like, let's be honest. He says what he wants, in certain moments, but I don't know. It's weird to me. It's weird to me. And he's had, all sorts of former teammates come out and just kind of call him out for it and stuff. I don't know. I just feel like he's kind of, I don't know. I just feel like
breakup, right? Like it's a bad breakup. That's all. Like that. There's still bitterness.
The part that pisses me off is that, all the people who supported him, like sports means so much to people for so many different reasons. Like you don't know, like Tom, you don't know why somebody cheered for you for 20 years. It could be because watching the Patriots reminds them of a loved one who's no longer, like, you don't know why people are fans. And so like, you have to be careful about how you like, you treat them like in your post. It doesn't take much to just be a good guy. Just be like, hey, go Pats. Like it's not, I don't know. It's just it's tone deaf to me.
I was just thinking like him saying I have no dog in the fight. It's like the scene in Anchorman after Ron Burgundy says, "Go fuck yourself, San Diego."
Yeah.
And the guy's just like, "You were my hero, Ron. Why did you say that?"
So I mean, listen. Let this be a lesson out there. Fall in love with the logos. Don't fall in love with the nameplates because it's a business to them. They don't That's the lesson there. Like Sonny said in Bronx Tale, nobody cares. So cheer for the logo because the logo won't say something like they won't cheer for you.
But the individuals are what draws people to the sport.
Yeah, but look at the Bruins though. I mean, the Bruins have been around for 100 years.
I didn't become a hockey fan because I like I became a hockey fan or like a legit hockey fan like to the point where we're here today. Because I like Sidney Crosby and David Krejci. Like that's the answer to most people's fandom is like they love Jeremy Swayman or they loved Charlie Coyle or like David Pasternak. It is the individual that brings people to the sport.
And Paul Kariya is why I started playing hockey in the first place. Individuals matter, but what I'm saying is like the Bruins have been around for over 100 years. So they're around before certain players, they're around after certain players, and that's kind of my point with the whole fandom stuff. But all right, Scott, you got to go quick. What's your favorite Super Bowl snack?
Buffalo chicken dip.
All right, Bridget.
Snack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I'm more of like a meal person. Like I'll just go for a bunch of chicken wings.
Okay.
Maybe nachos. Occasionally we'll have some nachos. It's pretty good.
Okay. Can't go wrong with nachos or dip. I'm gonna shout out the pizza chips from the original Italian bakery in Johnston, Rhode Island. If you haven't had those before, you're welcome.
That's all I'll say. Kind of a far away from where you're from, Brian.
Well, yes, but as you know, I have recent ties to Attleboro the last few years. So
yeah, I have family that lives there.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all very much for listening. Enjoy the Super Bowl this weekend.
Send us mailbag questions.
Yes. Email skatepod@eei.com.
Where is it?
Tweet at the three of us. Tweet at the skate pod. Comment on YouTube. Hell, even drive to the EEI studio and leave us a handwritten letter, and one of us will show up and meet and greet you, and that'll be cool. We'll get to know you
But
all.
we'll only answer it if it has chocolate attached to it. So.
All right. Thank you all for listening. We'll talk to you on Monday. Hey guys, thanks for watching the Skate Podcast. If you want to see more of our videos, visit our playlist.
Not in front of a screen? You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment.